There are some people that are very good at bringing spiritual activity into their lives, almost like a magnet. And I'll share with you today one of those situations. I've been working with some of my students, and we were doing crossing over work and we were training. We were going to different locations as a group. And it was a really helpful thing, not only for everyone to learn, but for everyone to find a little bit of their own strength and for all of us to come together and do such beautiful work as a group. Well, one of these situations that we ran into was a woman that lived out in the country, and we arrived at her home, and she expressed a mix of information and excitement that she was, quote, haunted. And the ghosts were coming through, and what was she going to do? And they bothered her son. We were all there. We were right on the spot. We're ready to do this. We're ready to help. And we went outside because seemed to be the source. This was an energy that went not only through her home, but outside of her home and stretched in a little bit larger direction. We could feel the energy. It was almost like a dome that kind of covered her living situation. We all stepped outside. I remember we were standing in a circle and just picking up the energy of what was happening. And we felt it. We felt this pull. This energy is being pulled here. We don't know why it's being pulled here, but it's being pulled here. And not only is the energy being pulled, but then spirits that were stuck were being pulled to the location as well. When I checked with my guide, which I still do to this day, you're never going to hear me stop sharing that fact. But when I checked in with my guide to say, all right, this feels a little bit different. Is there anything in particular that we need to do? He said, she's calling this in. She's bringing this into her home. She needs help stopping that. So this became real quickly not only a clearing of negative energy that was lingering, but a clearing of a few spirits that needed to cross over who were pulled in by this energy. But also we needed to talk to the homeowner to say, hey, we're going to need to work with you on setting up some boundaries and not pulling in the energy as much as was happening before. And initially, I wasn't even sure if she was aware that she was doing it or not, but we did have to approach it because in doing spiritual clearings, the last thing you want to do is clear everything, get it all set up, shiny, sparkly, brand new white light, and then go home and find out you have to come back again, which is exactly what was happening in this situation. So we cleared all of the negative energy, lifted it up. We all did our own style of clearing of this energy. Now, first, the negative energy wasn't necessarily spirits. It was simply negative energy. Think of energy as clouds, and some clouds are out of place and you shouldn't be here and you need to dissipate and go. And that's exactly what we did with the negative energy that was kind of looming around the property. Well, that energy lifted. And when that happened, we looked around and found a handful of spirits that needed some assistance. I didn't assist them in this situation because this was a training moment. And so the students did the work to do the crossing over, went pretty easily. There was no spirits that were really struggling or, terrified or in fear or anything like that. There wasn't anything really, really heavy. It was just that energy was holding them there. Now this happens where a spirit who's stuck in the in-between, who's in their crossing over transition, but not moving all the way through their transition, if that spirit comes across a particular energy that's really heavy or really negative, it can actually, dull that spirit. It can keep them there. It can, I guess the best way to say it is weaken the spirit. So once that negative cloud was lifted, we imagine picturing that cloud, lifting it up, transforming it into white light. I did, and a few other people did, like I said, their own style of lifting that energy and transforming it. But once that was done, then the spirits that were stuck mostly because they had encountered that negative energy and was drawn into this spot, were able to cross over with ease by some of my students. Now, moving forward, it was really clear that if we just left there, we were going to be back. And actually, we were. So I went in to talk to the homeowner and said, do you do spiritual activities here? Do you have sessions? Do you offer anything? Are you pulling in any energy in any way, shape, or form that you're aware of? And she said, well, we watch ghost hunting shows. And I said, well, how many ghost hunting shows do you watch? And she said, well, we watch like hours every night of ghost hunting shows. We'll even watch them on repeat. And I said, well, you really, really like ghost hunting shows? And she said, yeah. She said, but I don't like my house being haunted. I said, I understand that. Maybe spending time watching this many ghost hunting shows is amplifying and inviting some of the energy into, because it's such a big part of your life. Maybe we could back away from watching some of the ghost hunting shows for a while and see if that calms everything down. She wanted more advice. So what else can I do to not pull in this type of energy anymore? Because it wasn't her energy. She was pulling it in, but she wasn't negative. There was nothing in that home that was negative enough to attract more negative energy. It just was, there was so much focus on spiritual activity, hauntings, clearings, things like that, because they were watching so many shows, talking about it all day, all the time. And by doing that, yes, that can pull in energy. Now, I watch ghost hunting shows. I chat about this stuff all the time, but I don't tend to pull it in. You really have to be putting a lot of energy into a source in order to bring some of that source into your home. So you really have to be spending a lot of time talking about a certain type of energy, or ghost hunting, or negative vibes, or that kind of stuff, ghosts, hauntings, all of the pop culture words that we use. You really have to be putting in a large amount of time focused on that in order to start attracting it automatically to you. Now, she was excited to work through this. I said, all right, why don't we also, just for a week or two, limit some of the terms we use or some of the conversations that we have. Let's back off on talking about spirits and death and transition and huntings and ghosts and stuff like that. How do you feel about that? She said, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know that I can stop my son from that. So how old's your son? She's like 16. I said, yeah, you can stop. You can just tell him we're going to take a break from that. And honestly, I don't think that he was the driving force of this. I think she was such a fan of ghost hunting shows that it was just this automatic thing, and it became a part of all of her life. So I said, let's give it a try. Like 3 days later, she called me and she's like, stuff's moving again. We're seeing figures again. The house is full of spirits again. So headed back out there. Not all the students, because not all the students can go back out twice, but me and a couple people headed back out there again, did the same thing. I filled the negative energy with white light, lifted it up, had it transform from negative to positive. Some of the other students in their own style lifted that energy as well. Saw 1 or 2 spirits that were really quick to cross the second we lifted that up. So in essence, the focus on the paranormal, and that for so much time out of each and every day, was creating like a catcher or a magnet for negative energy. And what was happening is spirits that might have been struggling a little bit with their transition, in coming in contact with this energy, they held still. So the minute the negative energy was lifted again, they crossed over with great ease. And I had this conversation with her one more time. Okay, we need to take a break. I was taking a break. I said, let's really explore this. I mean, she said, well, I cut back from 4 shows a night to 2 shows a night. And I'm like, but you're watching them every night. She said, yeah. And we also thought, I remember her saying, we figured if we whispered or wrote the words that we weren't supposed to say, that it wouldn't call it in. And I'm like, it's not necessarily a vocal thing, like how loud you are calls it in. It's the intent. If it's on your mind, if you're thinking about it, if you're focused on it, especially 70-80% of your day, then you're going to attract it into your life. It's part of the whole manifesting flow and cycle. She said, okay, I got it. I promise this time we'll cut out all ghost hunting shows. We won't have haunted conversations, and we'll see what happens. I said, okay, great. A couple days later, yep, she called me. It's back. This is a haunting. This is all happening. It's happening. You got to help me. And I said, well, this time I'm not going to come out, because this time I'm going to work remotely. I've been there twice. I know the lay of the land. I know the energy. And I said, but this is also going to be the last time that I do a clearing, and I'm going to give you tools. and ask that you use them, knowing if you don't use them, this is going to happen. You've now seen what it's like to have the property cleared, what it's like to invite that back in, what it's like to have the property cleared and bring it back in again. And so I'm really handing this over to you to take care of your home, your land, your family, and balance it. So we talked in great depth about GCP, ground clear protect, how she could do that for herself, how she could teach her son and her family to do that for themselves as well. I showed her how to sprinkle just a hint of salt around the exterior of her house to connect with Mother Earth. That salt is kind of like a request to say, hey, Mother Earth, could you protect us and keep the vibration high and the positive energy flowing? I talked to her about doing, different smoke ceremonies and things like that she could do to set up boundaries, really for two reasons. Number one, so spirits didn't keep getting stuck in negative energy that was pulled into her property. But number two, for her and her family as well. They were never going to stop talking about the paranormal. You can't take that. If somebody has a passion for something, you can't say, well, your passion's not going to work for you ever again. So they were going to continue, but they needed to set up boundaries. They needed the GCP around their home, around themselves, the salt process, the smoke ceremonies. They really needed to amp up their protection process so that within their home, they could start to, again, watch small amounts of paranormal television and have conversations with each other as well. So by doing this, we were able to work with her, and she was able to start to build that protective shell around her home and her family. And then she was able to start to have these conversations again and start to watch shows again. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is that your focus is going to bring more to you. Whatever you're focused on, more of it's going to come to you. And it's the same with spiritual clearings. In the world of metaphysics, like attracts like, and just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not going to be a part of like attracts like. Now, when it comes to spiritual clearings, more often than not, I get the question, how many times do you have to go out? Once. There's only been maybe 2 or 3 times that I've had to revisit a situation. And each of those times, it was usually because another door was opened. Either way, know that your space is sacred. Protect that space. Focus on what you're putting out into the world, because more of it's going to come back in. And in her case, she stopped collecting the negative energy that was kind of like sticky glue for spirits that were in their transition. And this helped make it so no more spirits would be stuck in that type of energy, and she was able to balance it. So there's a lot of different ways to help spirits. There's a lot of different ways to approach this. And sometimes proactively teaching someone how to balance their space can also help spirits as well as they transition. Because in the end, ghosts are people too.
This podcast is brought to you by the SAGE Method, the most comprehensive and down-to-earth intuitive development training available. Is this your year? Is it finally your time to increase your intuition, bring in more abundance, and experience the bliss you deserve? If yes, then join thousands of students across the world for a 7-week journey to uncover your natural, beautiful, and strong intuition. Visit us at thesagemethod.com for more information.